there's always going to be two camps. There's always going to be a Marco camp, and there's always going to be a Peter camp. So
right.
It seems like everybody's pretty much getting along now. So it's cool.
Today we are ranking the albums of The Haunted, starting with The Haunted in 1998. The Swedish band kicking things off very much with riffs that are more or less a continuation of Slaughter of the Soul, which shouldn't be surprising considering that we have 3 members carrying over from At the Gates, alongside Patrick Jensen of Witchery. But then you've got vocalist Peter Dolving going for more of a Pantera thing, and even the cover feels reminiscent of Reinventing the Steel, although to be fair, this actually came out 2 years earlier. Feeling a little Hatebreed in there too, love the energy, just full speed ahead with the skank beats and thrash influences. Not as good as the next 2 albums, but pretty fun with standouts like In Vain, Bullet Hole, Undead, and Hate Song. I'm going to put this one at great. I know plenty would put it higher, but that's just my opinion. But moving on, we have The Haunted Made Me Do It in 2000. Marco Arro taking over on vocals with this one, and he is a beast, although this also marks the initial absence of drummer Adrian Erlandson. Absolute banger of an album right from the top with that insane earworm opening of Dark Intentions, perfect interplay of the drums and guitars on that one, and then right into the classic Bury Your Dead once more, kind of marrying At the Gates with Pantera. Trespass, Leech, Hollow Ground, Silencer, I might as well name every track because they all slap on this album. Endless riffs, wailing solos, great title, tight 36-minute package. What's not to love on this one? Definitely one of my most listened albums from them, and I love that cover art as well. It is going to perfection. They follow that up with One Kill Wonder in 2003. And what an awesome follow-up it is, very much in the same vein as that last one. Definitely feels like a part 2 in the same style with the same focus on speed and hooks, going kind of at 70% At the Gates, 30% Pantera. God Puppet will just rip your head off. The main riff on Shadow World gets totally lodged in your brain, kind of an arch enemy vibe on that one. And then of course there's DOA, which made an appearance on Rock Band as well. Bloodletting is also a total chugfest. Another killer album I spent a lot of time with in high school and college. So many fond memories, and it still holds up really well. Highly recommended. Also, perfection. Then we got Revolver in 2004. Peter Dolving making a return on vocals with this one, and I remember being kind of let down with the at times more rock-oriented outcome. The album title is actually a reference to the band trying to evolve their sound. There are still some great riffs to be found, but the pendulum swings back more in favor of Pantera here, especially with Peter's more hardcore influenced delivery. I just prefer Marco personally, and I could definitely do without the Yarly clean vocals like on Abysmal, Burnt to a Shell, and to a somewhat lesser extent All Against All. Can definitely appreciate some tracks though, like No Compromise, Sabotage, and Who Will Decide. Basically the tracks that feel like a melodeath band's take on Hatebreed or Snot even. Definitely not terrible, but a huge step down for my taste. I'm putting it at good tier, and that's kind of a hot take, because I know some people absolutely love that album. Me personally, not so much, but again, as always, put your own rankings down in the comments. It's all subjective anyways, and if you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to hit the like button. But next up is The Dead Eye in 2006.
The medication knocks the edge right off with every step away from feeling this.
Continuing on in that same direction with this one, except with more annoying vocals and less engaging songwriting, in my opinion. It's not without its moments, though. The Medication is definitely a banger on par with some of their best material. The Shifter and The Stain are also pretty solid with plenty of killer riffs, but also plenty of songs that have some good parts and not so good parts, like The Drowning, The Prosecution, and The Flood. I don't like the Reflection, the Fallout, the Medusa, or the Cynic. The Failure and the Guilt Trip are okay. Not bad, I could just kind of do without it, and another step down from the last one, I would say, so it's going to okay. Next up is Versus in 2008. Instruments were recorded live on this one as they were with the debut, giving it kind of a more raw feel. Opener Moronic Colossus actually feels like it could have been a song off of Metallica's Saint Anger, just without the insane snare drum, so that's maybe kind of a compliment.
Agree with that?
Pieces and Little Cage both start off nice and heavy with more of those classic harmonized Gothenburg riffs, but then detour into a kind of lame melodic direction. Somewhat ironically, I'm not a big fan of Trenches. As well as plenty of others like Ceremony, Rivers Run, and Scold, but Crusher is solid and Iron Mask is kind of interesting. I would also put this one at okay. That brings us to Unseen in 2011. Now, in the lead up to this album, Peter described it as, it's going to be epic, danceable, groovy, and very, very arty-farty metal.
You serious?
Notice none of those being words I would associate with why I like this band. But yeah, right from Never Better, it's clear that they are really going for something else with this one. Definitely some new metal sounding vibes, which isn't really even a bad thing in my opinion. I love me some new metal, but I'm just wondering, why now? It seems very late for that in 2011. I will admit that the clean chorus is kind of catchy, but No Ghost also gets downright goofy. Kind of Mushroomhead meets Clutch vibes.
You've got to move as if you need to know why.
And it goes on from there. I know people rag on the self-titled Suicide Silence album, but I can still find some enjoyment in that one. This is just like that weirdness turned up to 1,000. The best I can say is that there is some pretty solid drumming on it, but other than that, it's basically unlistenable. Fine for trying something different, but not every experiment pans out. This one is going to bad.
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
But then we got Exit Wounds in 2014. The return of Marco on vocals, and don't get me wrong again, Peter is good, but I've just always been on Team Marco all the way, so I was excited for this. And with Adrian Erlandson also back on drums, and Ola Englund replacing Anders on guitar. And with this refreshed lineup, they were seemingly ready to get much heavier again. Marco comes in like he never left with that opening scream on Cutting Teeth, total maniac, and the riffs are as thrashy as ever. My Salvation and Trend Killer are serious headbangers that sound seriously pissed off, and Psychonaut is Hook City. More Pantera and Lamb of God sounding riffs on Time Will Not Heal. Love the cymbals on that one too. Great hooks and soloing on Infiltrator. Killer album pretty much start to finish, if not maybe just a few minutes too long. The first half I would say is slightly better than the second, but overall, after that last one especially, like this was such a return to form, and so I am putting it at fantastic. They followed that up with Strength in Numbers in 2017. Now, I recall not being particularly thrilled by this album when it first came out, but every time I go back to it, I just remember how good it actually is. I was wrong. Brute Force is an absolute banger, still bringing the energy of classics like One Kill Wonder and The Haunted Made Me Do It. Preachers of Death has a pretty epic neoclassical solo, and Spark is also just an all-around great track with a more melodic tinge. Marco is consistently aggressive, especially on Tighten the Noose and the Meshuggah-esque Means to an End, and it's impossible to not scream along to the chorus of the title track. Once more perfectly fusing Gothenburg melodeath riffs with the bluesier Pantera-esque elements. Again, I had this one pretty low initially from memory, but the more I listened, the faster it rose in the ranks as I was going back to it now. This one is also going to fantastic. And that brings us to Songs of Last Resort in 2025. Another very strong outing, thankfully, that seems to largely pick up where the last one left off, despite the 8-year gap, arguably sounding even more youthful and pissed off than ever. In fact, if someone told me that opening track Warhead was a leftover recording from One Kill Wonder, I absolutely would have believed them. And this followed quickly by another shredfest and career best of a track with In Fire Reborn. This album's actually loaded with great tracks, from the more mid-paced Death to the Crown and In Flamesy melodies of To Bleed Out to the fiery DB-driven Unbound or the rapidly shifting rhythms of Through the Fire. They really do love their fire imagery, don't they? Also, in addition to being a rager, I love the title of Hell is Wasted on the Dead. Also dig the infectious groove and almost Raining Blood-esque build at the end of Collateral Damage, and the very throwback-feeling slow bluesy riffs of Labyrinth of Lies, taking me back to, like, Privation of Faith Inc. and Demonize. I'd say it still doesn't quite reach the heights of my two favorites, but this may be the closest that they have come since then, and they really have settled into a consistent groove with these last 3 albums. I think they're all equally incredible. I might put this one like a little bit higher, but it is also going to fantastic. Y'all check out this playlist for more groove and thrash metal rankings, or this one for melodic death metal rankings. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.